You were just telling me you had what were you saying about your TBI? How did you get a traumatic brain injury?
Playing football.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I got, it was funny. We played in East Bridgewater. I grew up in Hull, south of Boston.
Here, pull us a little closer.
Yep. And I was running back and a linebacker, and I took a hit during the play, and I scored on like an 80-yard touchdown. But like I remember running, and like the cerebrospinal fluid came out of my nose.
Oh.
Yeah, and I was like, just really wonky. And everybody's jumped, I scored the touchdown. I go back to my coach and I explain what was happening. But this is like, the 70s, something like the freaking dark ages. So I get sent back in, obviously with the swollen brain, skull fracture and TBI, and ended up manifesting as a seizures disorder. I would get waves of petit mal, grand mal seizures that required medication and hospitalizations and massive depression for weeks on end. And the moral of the story is I then went in to meet with the shamans in Ecuador and do a series of ayahuasca ceremonies for many weeks. And I came back and healed the seizure disorder. I never took medication again. I got off the Dilantin, the Depakote, the Neurontin, and I haven't had auras or seizures in like 15 years.
Auras?
Auras are kind of like it's like almost a precognition of a seizure. You know when it's coming. So it's this weird twilight zone. And with the seizures, especially the petit mals, I would get waves of them in the sleeping waking state, and they would cause massive depression for weeks on end. I mean, I couldn't freaking move. I was like paralyzed, and it was insidious and intractable. And all this is verified by my former neurologist, Dr. Allison Ryan in Northampton, Mass. So I am indebted to the spirits of ayahuasca, let's say.
Holy cow, man. So after you did the ayahuasca, you never got any seizures or auras?
No.
How old were you?
Probably like 17 years ago, something like that. Yeah. What was I? No, the seizures didn't manifest until a little later. I got the injury early on, and then I started to get like neurological dysregulation and things like that. But the real seizures, I think, started manifesting in my 20s. And
how long after the injury did the seizures start coming on?
7, 8 years.
7 or 8 years, really?
Yeah.
And then after the seizures happened, you did the ayahuasca how many years later?
It's all a blur.
Yeah.
In my 30s, I believe.
Okay.
Yeah, in my 30s.
And what do you think it was about the ayahuasca that was able to completely get rid of the seizures and all that stuff?
It's a good, it's anti-parasitic. It has all these efficacious applications for the human body. Mm-hmm. I could tell you a metaphysical theory, that one thing was I faced all these neuroses and self-doubt and this internal conflict and trauma within myself, like everybody suffers with. So I really straightened out a lot of the things that drove my behaviors in life that were unhealthy. Addictions, seeking externally. I was able to sit with myself. There's a part of the brain called the colostrum, right? The ego center that literally gets put to sleep and anesthetized when you do plant medicine ceremonies, when you do psychedelics. John Hopkins figured that out in like 2020. So I like to say the ego gets put to sleep. The tyrannical operating software of the separate self, the mystics would say, it gets put to sleep, and you can see with clear vision. And it's like you get like this life review. You can see everything. You can see how you behave unlevelingly and why. You can see the drives and the unworthiness, and you can do something about it. You can make these changes in your life. But the day-to-day tyranny of the ego doesn't allow you to see that. It's in the way of, say your divine nature, for instance. So I believe that I removed a lot of that turmoil and judgment and all these, because all the judgments we have for others in the world are really judgments and unworthiness we feel about ourselves, projected to get a hit so you feel better and self-righteous like a freaking bad drug addict.
Right.
The reality is it's like that undoing of the trauma within that manifests in a better way. So moral of the story, I think there's a physiological aspect to ayahuasca, and I think there's a metaphysical one as well. It allows you to self-reflect, make changes in your life. And that's my experience.
It lasts a while, right? A few hours?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. And I was doing San Pedro cactus as well, which is mescaline is the main ingredient there. There's like 15, 17 hour grueling, people say like, oh, you're just getting high or whatever. It's just like you face all your dark fears. It's terrifying often, these ceremonies, and don't go into it lightly, I would say,
Yeah.
And the shamans know this, and they're your tour guide through this experience, quite frankly. So they know what you're facing, and it's harrowing, But
Have you ever smoked straight up DMT?
what's the Bufo I have? That's the 5-MD. What the hell is it?
5-MeO DMT?
Correct. That I have.
That lasts like 5 to 10 minutes, right?
That lasts quickly. Ayahuasca, psilocybin, those are multi-hour experiences.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's a similar thing. They all have the same mechanism or function of putting the ego to sleep and allowing you to see with clear vision.
I wonder, is that, you've done both, is it a similar sort of experience when you're on ayahuasca, just longer lasting?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's a little more intense. DMT really blows the top off your ego. Right?
Oh, yeah. It really does blow the top off. I felt my soul leave my body.
Bingo. And it's tough to translate into this waking state we appear to exist in. So people are like, what are those dudes talking about? But it's wild, as you know. And I did a ceremony in anticipation of coming here with the shamanista this weekend. And we could talk about that later if you want, or whenever. It's the same mechanism. It's the same thing that it keeps happening. It's like, wow, you're tapping into another reality. Mm-hmm. And I've done this, I'm a non-dualist, so I study the Upanishads, the Ashtavakra Gita, Ramana Maharshi, Lao Tzu, Jesus, Buddha, all these mystics that say the same strange and specific thing and radical thing about the nature of reality. So for months, I just keep rereading the Ashtavakra Gita, which is considered, it's an ancient Sanskrit text that's considered the most mind-bending metaphysical text in history. And I kept rereading it, and I got thrust into that state of the one, of timelessness. And I'm like, so it's not just this substance is altering your brain chemistry. There are ways through fasting and meditation and other modalities.
Right.
As the mystics would say, it's like sahaja, your natural state. The ego state, the external searcher, the disaffected hungry ghost is not your real state. So it's removing the blocks to your awareness is enlightenment. It's not accessing or gaining something in the external world, right? So it's a different dynamic. I have to remove the false beliefs to rediscover what I already am, which is a blissful state.
Yes.
Which is tough for people to believe. I get that, because it's what the you live 10 minutes in this world. It doesn't appeal like that. You know what I mean?
Right. Man, what a gruesome injury. What your spinal fluid was coming out of your nose?
Yeah.
Jesus. And then what do they, when you first went in, I
didn't know for years later.
Were you in the hospital for a long time after that? Or
no. It was back in there, you rub some dirt on it. The coaches, they didn't understand what happened.
You were right back in the game?
Right back in the game, right with the fucking swollen brain. And I just bought a hyperbaric chamber, actually. I'm going to start doing it to access some of the frozen brain, because it can't swell. And
to do what is a hyperbaric chamber going to do for your brain?
It frees up, it oxygenates the brain. And they say that when the injury occurs, you almost get cognitively frozen at a particular time when it happens. Excuse me, but the moral of the story is that it led me down this path. My movie character had to go down this path, and I'm grateful for it, as twisted and painful as it's been. And I have a lot of empathy for people with depression, because I had this crippling, I couldn't move for weeks. It was painted my world black and gray. It was
yeah, no, it's brain injuries are known for being they're known for being endocrine disruptors. So they can really affect your hormone regulation and your testosterone levels. That's why a lot of football players or fighters or boxers or whatever that have had those extreme head injuries, they have to do hormone therapy after that.
Yeah.
So.
Well, thanks for being open to that. It's hopefully, I know a lot of people who suffer similar things.
That explains the depression too, like low hormone, low testosterone levels and stuff like that. That can affect your whole body, including your mood and your depressive states and all that.